All right, so our customer-centric voyage is coming to an end. We started out on South Street talking about product centricity, pivoting to customer centricity. We moved into a studio to talk about the upsides to customer centricity. Where does the profitability come from, or where might it come from if you deal carefully with acquisition, retention, and development? We're in my office now here at the Wharton School, and I want to wrap things up. I want to tie a ribbon around my 3 weeks of our course just to give you some key takeaways, just the main points that we discussed, because this customer centricity idea is pretty complex. And if there's just a few things that you're going to remember from it, it's going to be these 5 points over here. First is the idea of the cracks in product centricity. I don't think I need to describe what product centricity is again. Everyone is basically born understanding that, at least if they have any exposure to the business world. But the cracks in product centricity is a new, evolving idea. And one of the points I really want to emphasize around it is that the list of cracks in product centricity that we covered is only going to continue growing. The challenges for firms to come up with the next big thing and try to stay steps ahead of their competitors and keep their customers in check is only going to become more difficult. So as I said at the outset, it's not that product centricity is ever going to go away completely, but there's going to be more and more challenges to it, and therefore more and more reasons to think about this idea of customer centricity. Next, when it comes to customer centricity itself, I just want to be real clear on the definition, because it's real easy for people to make mistakes about what customer centricity means. For one thing, it does not mean super duper customer service. Just because we're really nice to our customers doesn't necessarily make us customer centric. Customer centricity arises when we're being really nice to the right kinds of customers. And it's more than being really nice to them. It is truly surrounding them with a variety of products and services and information, including things that our company might not produce, might not make any money off of. So customer centricity is quite different. But there's also a danger of going too far to the other extreme. And in fact, I often see it when we have conversations, including some of the comments in our own discussion forum. A lot of people think that targeting people, taking individual data and trying to figure out exactly which individual is taking on what activity at what time, they think that that's customer centricity. And you know what? It's not. In other words, customer centricity might embrace some of that kind of activity, but most of the targeting that goes on isn't very customer-centric. In fact, it's not very good at all. Just because we have the data, just because we know what a particular individual is doing, doesn't mean that we should be serving up a particular message to that person at a particular time. We want to be real careful about it. We want to be choosy about which customers we're really focusing on, and we don't want to go too far with it. So kind of intrusive marketing that borders on compromising some of a customer's privacy, that's not customer-centric. So it's finding the just right balance between rolling out the red carpet for everybody and trying to be everybody's best friend all the time. And the final point on my just quick summary of customer centricity is don't forget about the paradox of customer centricity. That even when we're a very, very customer-centric organization, we're only going to be doing those customer-centric things for the select customers. But for most of our customers, who are perfectly fine and we're glad to have them around, but we're not necessarily going to treat them the same way. We're not going to deliver special products and services for them, but we still want to have their business. We still want to have an ongoing relationship, even if it's not quite as deep or intense as it is with our best customers. So the paradox of customer centricity tells us that while we have these super duper customers and we're going to treat them really well, we still care an awful lot about those regular customers. But we care about them in a more product-centric way, that we're going to come up with products and services or give them the hand-me-down products and services that we've developed for the really good customers. We want their business, and it's really important to us to maintain their business, but we're going to do it on our terms. And once we understand what customer centricity is, if we want to bring it to life, and if we want to make more money off it compared to product centricity, it's all about a celebration of customer heterogeneity. Again, it's not enough just to acknowledge that our customers are different from each other, but if customer centricity is going to succeed, it's by really, really accentuating those differences to help us go after the really good customers and sort them out from the not as good customers. And that has all kinds of implications for the incentive structures that we use, for the way that we design our organization, for the way that we communicate with our customers and our other external shareholders. So the celebration of heterogeneity is key and shows up every step along the way as we try to become customer-centric. And the other part of our celebration of heterogeneity, as we've discussed earlier this week, is the idea of taking customer acquisition, customer retention, and customer development and dealing with them in a very different way than a traditional product-centric company would do so. These are not just low-level tactics that we use to support the brand. These are tactics that are going to be on an equal level to the brand. We want to be very, very careful about the kinds of customers that we go after. We're willing to spend more money on them because their CLV will be worth it. And we're going to try to achieve a just right balance when it comes to customer retention and customer development. We're not necessarily going to let those things go, but maybe we'll spend just a little bit less money on trying to keep our existing customers around longer and trying to get them to do more things, and instead trying to find some really valuable customers based on what we've learned from the customers that we've already had with us. Another important theme that I can't say enough about is that if we're really going to do the customer-centric strategy the right way, we really have to think in the long term. The idea of investing in the right customers, it's not something that we can do quickly, and it's not going to give us a very fast payoff. A lot of companies talk about investing in customers, but they don't necessarily mean it. If we're investing in customers, we're actually willing to lose a little bit of money in the short run, because by doing the right things to the right customers, it's going to be well worth it in the long run. And something that goes along with this long-term thinking is the idea of experimentation. I've said a little bit about that already, but it's important to recognize that we're experimenting not only to figure out what's the right message to use right now, but it's adaptive learning. So as we're running one experiment, we're always thinking about what's the right experiment to run after that. So long-run thinking requires us to be always testing and learning, earning while learning. Experimentation is really key. And the bottom line is to recognize that customer centricity is not for everyone. There are plenty of firms that are not customer-centric. That's not to say that they treat their customers badly, but they're not obeying all the principles that we've discussed here. And that's fine. There are plenty of firms that can focus more on operational excellence or performance superiority. Those are very good strategies to pursue. But if you want to be customer-centric, you have to understand what it is, and you have to make a very well-informed decision about whether it's the right strategy for your firm, and then how and when to go after it. So I'm not trying to push everyone towards it. I just want them to understand what it really is. So that's my story about customer centricity, and I hope that you found it enjoyable and informative, and I hope that it might impact the way that many of you go to market. And speaking of going to market, that's what we're going to be focusing on next. My colleague David Bell is going to look much more at go-to-market strategies and tactics. What channels should we be operating in, looking at pricing, going back to some of the 4 Ps that Barbara first laid out, but going in much more depth into some of those tactical issues that companies really need to know whether they're going to be customer-centric or not. So I'll wrap up my customer-centric voyage with you right now and wish you the very best.